I'm going to be attempting to do the whiteboard challenge. This is my first attempt. I've never clicked the button to generate a random set of requirements, and this is the first time clicking on it and seeing that a police officer, this is the person who I'm designing for. You can specify demographics. So I'm going to be designing for a police officer who is using a smartphone that is less than 12 months old, and the police officer wants to buy a new bike. So I need to design a system for a police officer to buy a new bike using a smartphone less than 12 months old. So we can, I suppose, just screenshot this, bring it in. Have a little reminder up here. So I'm going to be designing a persona now. So the police officer is going to be called Jake. Let's say Jake, the police officer, is 37 years old, and it's his first bike. He wants to own a bike. However, he also owns a smartphone that is, well, less than 12 months old, I suppose. So Jake has a problem where Jake wants to buy a bike, and he has never owned a bike, or has never, never dealt with having to maintain, to do any maintenance on the bike, or just, all he knows is his friends that have owned a bike previously, so he has seen a bike from afar. So we want to get Jake a bike pretty much, which will mean that we are designing some sort of a system which will allow Jake to learn more about the bike, and taking into account that the phone is less than 12 months old, which is, we could just pretty much assume that this is a current gen flagship, which means that we will be probably able to utilize AR, the augmented reality, other things like, what else do current gen? Well, it's a speedy processor, probably. Speedy processor. And so our user, Jake, will be able to maybe even fit this into his own garage to see how it would look like, or how he would look like. So I'm going to move on to drawing out some sketches of how I think this could work. So let's assume the user, Jake, has a smartphone, and then user is asked to come up to a mirror. I don't even know how to present this properly. So let's just say this is a mirror, hypothetically. So she's standing on this leg, right? So we have the user, which the user is asked to scan himself. So the camera is showing the camera takes a selfie of himself in the mirror, so then it gets scanned into the software, where now the user is able to generate his own very low fidelity, however, because it's just a phone and it's a camera. However, because it's a current gen flagship, it's the most powerful it's ever been, which in turn means that the user is actually able to do that. Then the user moves over to the app itself, where you have a list of digitized bikes on the other end where there's just like 360 of the bike, and the user is actually just draw something that is a motorcycle kind of, and the user is then able to position himself. So Jake can put himself on, let's say he's sitting here on the bike, and now the user is able to see how he would look like and what the relative size would be of the bike and him, and then also he can position the bike in his garage. So let's say this, and then he also decides to come over to his house, and he has a little door for himself, I don't know, a window, whatever. He also has a garage door, and he wants to figure out if the bike would fit. So the user then points his camera at the garage space, and his bike shows up on screen. I'm going to point a little arrow to show what's happening on the display there. The display is actually showing a representation of his garage door, and we can see that the bike is actually positioned in there, so the user can know that the bike fits in his garage, and it's a nice and pleasant thing to look at, because a bike, I assume the buyer wants to have a pleasant looking bike, and because Jake lives in a warm climate, I think we can do that assumption too. So Jake, police officer, lives somewhere in, I don't know, in, let's say, Austin, Texas. It's kind of warm in there at all times, so that's why he chose to buy a bike. And I don't know. So this is the overview of how the process of using the app kind of would be, or like other things like sample UI sketches would be, well, it's just a search bar, or actually that would be a good the application would be using a machine learning where it would pair all the images of bikers with their bikes, because there's quite a lot of imagery available online of how a biker sits on a bike. So we could train some sort of an artificial intelligence to actually recognize how bikers choose their bikes. Thus, we could kind of from the step one where Jake scans himself, we could then actually just let the user actually upload the image here, and then the user just uploads it, and the algorithm, the application, comes up with a list of bikes. I think we could draw this inspiration from glasses. I have never really purchased glasses online. However, I have used the software where you scan your face, and then the software shows you how glasses would look like on your face, and it even shows you how likely is one type of glass fit with your face shape and everything. So I think Jake could be happy by seeing like all sorts of bikes suggested to him, and then when Jake chooses the bike he likes, and then goes through the process of checking how it fits with the garage, because I think, again, a bike, so not only riding it, it's also a cool piece of almost jewelry. It's a thing where you want to look at it and maybe place it by your house and, I don't know, show it to everyone. So then the user chooses one of the bikes, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a 12-month-old smartphone, but it is a It's a smartphone which pretty much has capabilities like NFC. I don't know what the NFC logo is, but not only the user can pay with his PayPal or any online service, the user can also tap their credit card. Say this is a credit card data and stuff. The user can tap it to the back of the phone and actually do a payment. Especially, so let's assume this user lives in Austin, Texas, where credit cards is a huge thing. So the user will just pay with their credit card using their phone, I suppose. And yeah, so I think that's the problem. The problem is that the user has a phone and wants to buy a new bike, but also the main crux is that the user does not know how they will look on a bike or anything. So this application is gonna show them how they would look on the bike, or how the bike would fit them at home, and so on. We would also note that the user lives in what, warm climate. I mean, that's what they want to buy a bike, blah blah. And I think that is my solution, or at least at least off the cuff, best with what I could come up with as I'm performing this whiteboard challenge. Yep, that's it.